Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play the entirety of this video uninterrupted, and then I'll go back and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that were done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go.
This briefing will provide information about an officer-involved shooting involving members of the New York City Police Department. You will see relevant video footage and other available evidence that will allow you to gain a better understanding of the events that led up to the incident and what occurred during the incident based on the facts that we know at this time. New York State law and NYPD policy give police officers the authority to use reasonable force under appropriate circumstances. The department's Force Investigation Division conducts a thorough investigation when an officer discharges his or her firearm or in cases of any serious police-related injury or death. Sometimes these investigations can require as much as a year or longer to complete. Our understanding of the incident may change as additional evidence is collected, analyzed, and reviewed. Investigators are typically required to interview multiple witnesses several times, review many hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. The images and information you are about to see may be disturbing. When a police officer uses force to take a person into custody or defend against an attack, the images can be graphic and sometimes difficult to watch. There may also be strong language recorded in the videos you are about to see. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for young children and sensitive viewers.
Yes, good morning. 911, Jenny Kelly, paramedical.
Hello, I'm requesting NYPD.
What's the location?
I'm at 8 East 3rd Street.
8 East 3 Street?
8 East 3rd Street, yes, correct.
All right, apartment or private house?
It's a shelter. I'm a residential aide here. I was on my way to work. I was on Bowery and 3rd Street where I was attacked by a civilian who was a man with a bottle in his hand requesting money from me, and he had a broken bottle. And he did not hit me with a broken bottle because somebody pulled up. There are witnesses at the hotel at the corner of Bowery.
All right, okay, ma'am, take a breath. Where are you in the
Okay.
building of what specific floor and apartment?
I'm in the building of 8 East 3rd Street. I'm on the first floor of the lobby.
You're in the lobby. Okay, this is between 2nd and 1st Avenue, correct?
Yes. No,
Okay.
this is between 2nd and Bowery.
And
Second-
how long
between
ago
2nd
did
Ave and Bowery.
how long ago did this happen?
2 minutes ago.
2 minutes ago?
2 minutes ago.
This person still there?
So the person started walking towards my left, and I came to my job.
All right, so is he
So if
black,
he's
white,
there, he's
Asian,
not
Hispanic,
far.
Indian, what is he?
He looks as if he's African American or like light skin, like mixed. He's about 5'6", between the ages of maybe 25 and 30. He has a broken glass bottle with a plastic bag over his shoulder. A plastic bag that looks like it's filled with clothes or some type of belongings.
All right, but he did not injure you, but he did, like, approach you. He did, like, come to attack you.
No, he slapped me in my face.
He slapped you.
Yes, but he did not hit me with the bottle. But he threatened me with the bottle. He told me to give me all the money that I had in my pocket or that he was going to come me with the bottle.
New York City 911. Do you need police, fire, or medical?
Yeah, I just want to report this guy in the corner.
Okay, what is he doing?
He has two knives in his hands, and he's
What?
you know,
Okay, where
scaring
is he?
people.
Where is he?
He's no, there's a cop here. I'm just letting them know.
No, I understand, but what's the address? So I can let them know.
Oh,
he doesn't
Bowery and Bowery, Bowery and Front Street.
I got it. So you're saying that the individual has a knife?
Yeah, that's the cop here.
Okay, but are they with him? Are they with him?
There you go, right there.
What is it? Okay, is he a male, black, white, Hispanic, Asian?
Hello?
Hello?
Sorry.
Hi.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, okay. All right, so the cops got him.
But did you tell him that he has a knife?
Yeah, he has two knives.
Okay, ma'am. And this
Yeah.
individual, okay, what color shirt is he wearing?
He's wearing a gray hoodie.
A gray hoodie? Is he black, white,
Yeah, the
Hispanic? I understand, but I
Huh?
just want to notify just in case someone else is coming. Was he wearing a black, white, is he black, white, Hispanic, Asian, or Indian?
He's I believe black.
Wearing gray hoodie. Okay, so he's a male
Yeah.
black?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Is anyone else there at the location besides the police officers you saw?
Yeah, you got a lot of people around. The lady that was dead, she just called them too. So she just called the cops up earlier. So,
Got it.
but I just wanted, because he could hurt somebody.
Correct. Okay. Was he doing anything with the knives in particular? Anyone
He
injured?
actually tried poke at me when I was walking by.
Okay, so he just randomly attempted to okay.
Yeah.
But no, but you're not injured. You don't need an ambulance?
No, we're good. We're good.
Attempted.
fucking move. Watch out, watch out. It's too nice. Where's the knife? No, we got it. We got it. Fuck. I'm out of tasers. I'm out of tasers. Get out of the way. Put the knives down. Down, with it. Drop the knives. Go wide, go wide.
Southbound on Bowery.
Westbound on Spring, westbound on Spring. What do you got? What do you got? Yeah.
I don't know, bro.
That's the knife, grab the knife.
Where's the other knife? There's two knives. There's two knives.
Where's the knife?
In the coming weeks and months, the NYPD Force Investigation Division, in cooperation with the prosecutor having jurisdiction over this incident, will continue to investigate and analyze this incident as more interviews are conducted and forensic tests are completed. After the investigation is complete, the facts of the case will be presented to the First Deputy Commissioner's Use of Force Review Board, which will evaluate the evidence to determine if the use of force applied in this case was justified and within department guidelines.
Okay, let's get into it. So this guy is obviously not right. Or he could be mentally there. He's just a New York criminal who's been coddled and pandered, and he knows he can do whatever the fuck he wants to do, and they're not going to do much to him. That's why New York is a shithole, and I have no desire to go back to New York. The police up there in New York, man, they got it bad. They've got it bad. The citizens got it bad. The citizens, the non-police citizens, they got to live in such a fucking crime-ridden shithole city where their government officials don't care about them, and they care more about the criminals than they do the law-abiding people. So looking at a news article from the New York Daily News talking about this incident. Field's rampage began around 8:30 a.m. at the Butcher's Daughter, a vegetarian cafe at the corner of Kenmare Street and Elizabeth Street. Fields grabbed a glass bottle used to serve water at the restaurant. He grabbed the bottle, walked away, broke the bottle, and came back. By then, the staff had locked the door, so Field went next door to a market attached to the cafe and demanded a mask. He was wearing work gloves, so I thought he was doing deliveries. He didn't seem threatening at first. He just seemed impatient, said Cochran. Scotty Cochran, a worker who was there. Cochran said that when he failed to find a mask, Fields responded, "Give me your fucking mask." Cochran said he handed over his own mask, and Fields began smashing bottles of olive oil on the store's shelves. Cochran took refuge in the locked cafe next door. Fields soon moved on to another eatery, Ruby's Cafe on Mulberry Street near Spring Street, where he swiped 2 butcher knives from the kitchen, which you see here in the video. He just grabbed them and left, a cafe manager told the Daily News. The kitchen guys tried to run after him. It was very fast. He then wandered south, passing the Butcher's Daughter again with a blade in each hand, probably to look unapproachable or intimidating, said Cochran. Near the corner of Elizabeth Street and Grand Street, Fields threatened to cut a group of elderly people and threatened to poke one of the people with a knife. An NYPD helicopter soon spotted Fields near East Houston Street. Field hurried past the Capitol Social Club on Mott Street near Houston Street as Kim Celeste sat nearby. He had 2 butcher knives, she said. They were really big knives. Cops chased Fields on foot. They were having a hard time catching up to him. Then he turned the corner, and we heard a gunshot. 9th Precinct officer found around, but no one was hit. Another officer hit Fields with a taser, which we see. It didn't mention it in the video, but it says this in the article. The officer who fired the gun round was taken to an area hospital with ringing in the ears. So that's something that NYPD normally says in their little press releases or their critical incident briefings, that officers involved in shootings were taken to the hospital to be treated for tinnitus. And I think that's a good tactic for the protection of the officer. That way, later on down their career, they experience hearing loss. They have a documented incident where they were exposed to high sound decibels that was capable of damaging hearing. Because without that documentation, insurance and the agency can easily fight them and say, well, you can't prove that this happened. So if you end up getting into an officer-involved shooting, if you're a citizen and you get involved in a shooting and you haven't been shot, stabbed, slashed, whatever, you still need to go to the hospital and get treated for tinnitus, in my opinion. That is a a medical problem that you're occurring. And if you're a police officer or security guard, then it's even more important that you do that, so that if you do end up having some degree of hearing loss from this, it's a documented occurrence. You've been treated for it. You can then have a more easily winnable case if you need to do something about it. Fields was raised by an adoptive mother in the Cypress Hills house in East New York, Brooklyn, said his stepbrother, Terry Fields, 60. Terry Fields said the suspect was still distraught over his adoptive mother's recent death. He doesn't hurt anybody. He's a talker, the stepbrother said. He's been going through some things. He was taking medication, but after the death of our mother, he stopped. Terry Fields and a family friend said the suspect was acting erratically when they saw him a few days ago. Police said Jordan Fields is a Crips member who was sentenced 3 years in prison for attempted weapons possession following a July 4th, 2013 shooting of police officer Jamil Sarwar at the Cypress Hills houses in East New York. Charges against Fields in Friday's incident were pending. It's kind of scary when you see a crazy person with 2 butcher knives walking down the street, Kalesti said. Let's go back. Police said Jordan Fields is a Crips member who was sentenced 3 years in prison for attempted weapons possession following the July 4th, 2013 shooting of police officer Jamil Sarwar at the Cypress Hills in East New York. Sentenced to prison for 3 years for attempted weapons possession following a shooting of a police officer. So let's click on that link, see what that says. So this is an article, July 12, 2013, New York Daily News by Thomas Tracy. 2 gangbanger teens charged in July 4 NYPD officer shooting. Authorities have charged 2 teen gunmen involved in the July shooting of a Brooklyn cop, but neither is believed to have fired the bullet that wounded the rookie NYPD officer, sources said Friday. Jordan Boogie Fields, 17, and Trayvon Trigga Stokes, 15, were charged with attempted murder. What the fuck kind of nicknames are those? Boogie and Trigga? Fucking oxygen thieves. Oops. Then it wanted to hit me with signing up to be able to read this article. So I won't be able to go any further. Oop, maybe so. They are reputed members of the Frontside Crew, an offshoot of the Bloods street gang. Sources say the duo blasted away at 3 members of the Backside crew who are affiliated with the Crips outside of East New York Cypress Hills houses on July 4th. It keeps popping this thing up, wanting me to pay to read the article. Police officer Jamil Sarwar, 30, and his partner Javier Solos were responding to the shooting. Sarwar was struck by a ricochet and released from the hospital the following day. Okay, so the guy they're dealing with is a fucking shithead. Obviously been involved in the criminal justice system since being a teenager. Jordan Boogie Fields, 17. And his friend Trayvon Trigga Stokes, 15. Oh my God. All right. So, in true fashion, the woke left are saying that he's having mental problems, blah blah blah. No, he's not having fucking mental problems. He's having accountability problems. That's what he's having. He's involved in an incident where an officer is shot, and all he gets is 3 years for a weapons possession charge. No, he should have done more time. Should have got different charges out of that. And there's no telling what other charges and stuff that he's had as well. So that was just a couple articles that I read. Haven't done any more exhaustive research into this guy. But with my prior experience in dealing with people and my experience in looking into these incidents, watching these videos, finding out more information about the people, it's pretty common to see people with extensive criminal backgrounds, multiple arrests, multiple charges throughout several years. And I would suspect that this guy obviously has more than just the thing that he had from that one article that I read. It's not that he has mental health issues. He has accountability issues. He does not fear any repercussions because he's probably been allowed to take amended down charges, take sweet ass plea deals, and then here recently, after the laws have changed up there in New York with bail reform, he's probably getting picked up for stuff and then getting released right afterwards. So he does not give a shit about being caught for committing crimes. It does not bother him. Just like it doesn't bother a lot of criminals up there. That is why crime is so rampant in New York. And this hug-a-thug mentality that our courts have, that the prisons have, that is why crime is so rampant in other large metropolitan areas. That, and because these things that are being done, if you notice, in these large metropolitan areas where the crime is rampant, you will notice that the majority of the people in charge who have decision level making positions, they are predominantly of the same political party and share the same ideological beliefs that are associated with that political party. And I'm talking about the Democrats. Go to any major metropolitan city and you will find that the Democrats that are in charge, their shit's all fucked up. The criminals practically run those damn towns. They coddle and pander and just slap them on the wrist. There are too many criminals out there. There's too many violent offenders out there who are walking among us who do not need to be walking among us. They need to be locked away. They need to be put in a cage and left there. They don't need to come back out into society. They don't need to mingle with us. They contribute nothing to the betterment of society. They are a clear and present danger to society. And some of them, the real violent ones, I don't even think that they need to be kept in a cage their entire life. I think they need to be executed. Why are we entertaining this idea of keeping murderers alive? Not every murderer gets the death penalty. Death penalty is not used a whole lot. And even when a person is sentenced to the death penalty, it's like 30 years before they ever get executed. Some people die from natural causes before they're ever fucking executed in prison. There are a ton of people in prison for murder, and they don't get a death sentence. And some of them don't even have a life sentence. Some of them have been able to get their charges amended down. They got a sweet plea deal. There's been people who've been originally charged with murder, but they end up getting a sweet plea deal and get manslaughter instead, or reckless homicide, something like that. And they don't spend a whole lot of time in prison. And of the time that they do end up spending in prison, it's cakewalk. Because they're coddled and pandered within the correctional facilities. They get to have access to Cokes, Pepsis, candy bars, chips, cheese sticks, pepperoni, peanut butter, noodles, you name it. They have access to all kinds of stuff. And they get access to the drugs. Because these prison facilities are so understaffed that they will literally hire anybody with a heartbeat. And they end up hiring some real fucking shitbags who don't need to be wearing a badge. They need to be wearing prison orange. And then these people bring in the drugs into these facilities. And so you got dudes in prison serving 20 years who are dealing dope inside the prison just like they was dealing dope out on the streets. You get access to marijuana, cocaine, all kinds of shit. You can get cell phones inside prison. Can't tell you how many videos I've seen of some prisoner with a smuggled cell phone doing a selfie inside a cell. And if it's not them getting fucking cell phones smuggled into the prison for them, well, damn it, some prisons give them a smart tablet for them to have. So they can check their fucking email and take pictures with the damn thing and keep up with family. We need justice reform in this country for sure. We need reform within the courts and the prisons. Because it is way too damn soft. It's as soft as a pillow. This country needs to go back to having the mindset of being hard on crime. We need to lock violent offenders away for long periods of time. And this rehabilitative stuff, it don't work. It don't work for shit. You can't take an 18-year-old street thug and convert them. You cannot rehabilitate them any more than you can rehabilitate a fucking child predator. The only way these street thugs ever stop fully gangbanging and being destructive little shitheads for society is when they get super fucking old and they've lost some testosterone and they're too old to fucking gangbang and run the streets anymore because it's a risk to them. It's too easy for them to get killed. That's the only time they stop going hard in the streets. Or the ones who end up getting popped and they spend a long ass time in prison. And they've reached that age to where they've finally recognized, hey, my lifestyle was fucking stupid. What I live for is bullshit. You ain't taking no 21-year-old gangbanger and rehabilitating them within just a few years. That's not happening. There's no reason to be releasing them when they're going to go straight back doing the same shit they was doing before they got locked up. And that's probably going to break some little liberals' hearts because they fully believe in the rehabilitating process. It does not work the way some people think it works. The good idea fairies who come up with this shit, they have no clue. No clue whatsoever. And that's all this stuff is good ideas. This country needs to go back to having a hard approach on criminals. We need to make criminals fear the system. Because they're not fearing it right now. They sure as shit are not fearing the system right now. At all. And until we get a handle on that, things are going to be getting way, way worse. A lot worse. So this was obviously after he already stole the mask from someone else. Who the fuck robbed someone of a mask that they've been wearing all day and then you put it on? Like, that's just nasty. But these people are in here, and this dude walks in there. And New York, because they are anti-gun, they don't believe in guns in whatsoever, and they restrict their law-abiding citizens from being able to have guns. What if this dude turned violent and started to attack them? They have no opportunity to defend themselves because their government restricts their ability to have firearms. It's not easy to get a firearm in New York or a permit to carry. Not easy at all. They make it hard. What if he turned violent on them? They don't have the option of having a concealed gun. They can't protect themselves by that means. So what's the person in the kitchen going to do? Well, they might be able to grab another knife. They may be able to buy or grab a meat cleaver or something. What's this person out here in the dining room going to do? Throw one of these little stools at them? Go over here and grab a little coffee cup, throw it at him? He's up creek without a paddle. Here we go with the portable radios in New York. And I still don't know the answer to this, but the more videos I watch out of New York, the more I am convinced that they don't have mobile radios in any of their fucking cars. Because I don't think I've ever seen anybody talk on a mobile radio in a vehicle. It's always portable radios that I see being used. And the portable radios I see being used have no lapel mics on them whatsoever. This is a norm of what you see for NYPD. Officers having to hold a portable radio in their hand. Now, obviously, New York is such a large agency that I'm 100% sure that they probably cannot issue radios to every single officer. And instead, they have quote-unquote community radios. So back at the precincts, they'll have a room or something, a shelf system with all these radios on the charger. And when a person comes in to work, they check a radio out, they go work. At the end of the shift, they come back and they put that radio on the charger, and then someone else can get it and put a new battery in it or whatever. So these are hot swapped radios, in my opinion, which is probably an explanation for why there aren't lapel mics on them. Generally, when people, and you can tell this radio is banged up, like it has got some wear and tear on it. And so when you have a piece of equipment being shared by multiple people, things kind of get broken or not taken care of very well, and they just get damaged very easily. So it's possible that because of that, the agency doesn't provide lapel mics, or they did initially provide the lapel mics, but because they were used by so many people, they just ended up breaking, and then they said they weren't going to buy any replacements. And it could also be a culture thing up there, where the people in charge of the training and FTO, when they learned it from someone, that someone, told them, lapel mics are junk, don't use them, they fall off in fights, and then that carried on to the next generation, and so forth. So it could just be a culture thing up there where they just don't believe in lapel mics. And it could be a mixture of both of those, and it probably is. It's probably a mixture of a culture belief in it, and it's a mixture of finances. The agency just cannot afford to provide lapel mics for every single portable radio out there. But in my opinion, lapel mics are an essential piece of equipment for a radio. It is a life-saving piece of equipment. This is unacceptable to me. Him having to hold his radio while he's trying to drive, he can't even get a good two-handed grip on the steering wheel. If he needs to do something else, like operate the siren or something like that, is he going to then take over the steering wheel with the radio in that one hand? Or is he going to transition the radio into his other hand and have a finger sticking out and trying to press buttons and stuff? Like, that doesn't seem good to me. He needs to be able to have both hands available to safely operate the vehicle. When dismounting from the vehicle, he needs to be able to operate the radio without having to hold the damn thing in his hand. He needs to be able to reach up to his shoulder or to his shirt area, wherever you can clip the mic at, press the button, talk, release, and then put hand back on fighting tools if necessary. I've seen so many videos, and it's even in this video, where you see an officer running with the radio in his hand, and then he's got his gun out, and he can't get a good two-handed grip on his pistol to provide accurate fire. And this is one of the reasons why I think that when he fired, he missed. Because he was forced to have to fire from a one-handed grip due to the fact he was having to carry a fucking radio in his hand. Okay, so I misspoke. He didn't have a radio in his hand. But he does have a janky two-handed grip going on there. I don't know if that's just his hand breaking after... Not hand breaking, but his grip breaking after he fired the shot. Yeah, I don't... It's hard to tell what kind of grip he's got. But pay attention to the surroundings here. When he shoots, there's other people around behind him. Now, that may happen. You may have to be forced to fire when there's people in the background. I'm not saying he's wrong for shooting when there's people in the background. But this is where firearms training is important. Especially if you live in an urban environment like New York. It's just people all around. So we have a moving target here. He's running. And this officer decides to discharge his gun. And he misses. Luckily, no one got hit. And you can even see the round hit the ground right in here. So I'll replay it a couple more times, and you'll see the dust pop up right in here as that round strikes the ground. So yeah, he missed. And that's kind of common with gunfights. There's going to be misses. I don't know. the statistics in it, but if you watch enough of these videos, you'll find out that there's a lot of misses in gunfights. Not saying it's an accepted thing, like, oh, hey, there's going to be a miss, it's okay. I'm not saying that. But what I'm trying to get at is giving an explanation on why this occurs. Like, how does this happen? Agencies across this nation are all different. The training academies that these agencies send their officers to all across this nation are all different. They may have some similarities, and in some cases they may have some standards in place so that they are very similar, and an officer from one state could go to another state and be able to work without any issues. But the bottom line is they're all different. And the budget determines what kind of training they're able to do. Municipalities do not have a tree with money growing on it. They don't have an endless supply of cash to be able to spend on whatever they want. Now, obviously, New York has a large budget. It's a large city. Of course they're going to have a large budget. So when you talk about the millions of dollars they got in their budget, that sounds really nice. But when you start factoring in salaries and all this other stuff and all these different line items on the budget, well, then you start seeing that that's really not a whole lot of money for some other things on the budget. So salary is a big eater. Fleet management and fuel is a big eater of money. The overtime is a big one. That eats up a lot of the budget. Uniforms, equipment, etc. That eats up a ton of money. And then the training budget. After you spend all this money on all these different categories, paying people salaries and all this stuff, you're only left with so much money for training. And in places like New York, where the woke liberal left have defunded them, you've taken an agency that already didn't have a whole lot of money allocated in these different things, and now you've decreased that by a certain amount. So now they went from being fucked to being really fucked. So they can afford, in a lot of cases, to have good, adequate training for their officers. When it comes to firearms training, when an officer gets hired, they go through an academy. At the academy, they get a block of instruction on firearms training. And for the most part, that can be a pretty good block of instruction. Like I said earlier, the academies vary from state to state. And so the instructors will vary from state to state. And even within a state agency for academy, the instructors who are there, they may have multiple of them. There may be some good ones. There may be some bad ones. There are some people who end up moving up into the instructor world who they don't really need to be instructors. It's just a place to put them. Not all instructors are great teachers. So for the most part, there can be a good block of instruction in the academy, or if it just ends up being that the wrong person's teaching that week or teaching this one block, everyone could be getting bad instruction or not getting as good of instruction as they could be getting. But typically, when they get hired, they go to the academy and they get a pretty decent block of instruction for firearms training. And then when they come back to their agency, after that point, they will, at minimum, have one firearms qualification a year. And agencies vary on how many times they do that. Some just stick with the bare minimum of once a year. Some do twice a year. Some do 4 times a year. They'll go qualify. But qualify is not training. I'll say that again. Firearms qualification is not training. I'm sorry I'm breaking your heart on this, guys, but it's not. It's just a qualification course. There is no training whatsoever. Some agencies can only afford to do qualification once a year, and they may even struggle with that. And so if they're struggling with that, how are they given any other follow-on firearms training for their officers? Are they able to replicate a block of instruction for firearms like the academy did? No. An agency can't take an officer and take them off the street and put them in a 1-week class for firearms training. They can't do that on a regular basis. One, they're every agency right now is short-staffed. I don't think there is any agency in this country that is like, yep, we're good. We got enough officers. I don't think that exists. If it does exist, I would love to know about it. Please tell me which agency has so many officers that they're fine with what they got. They're not doing any freaking hiring right now. So they're already short-staffed. And the budget's already sucking. So they can't replicate what they've done at the academy a year or two after they've been hired and have completed the academy. They may be able to do a couple hours once a year of firearms training that touches on some of the points that they learned at the academy. But they're not going to get a full replication of what they did at the academy. That's just not going to happen at all. They may do one evening pistol stuff this month, and then the next quarter they may end up doing some rifle stuff, and then the next quarter they might end up doing some shotgun stuff. It's going to be spread out. It's not all going to be all at once. And these skills are perishable skills. If you go take a 2-day pistol class, and I'm not talking like no concealed carry class or anything like that. I'm talking like a legit combative pistol class, a fighting pistol class. If you go take that 2-day class, at the end of that 2-day class, you should be really good with your skills. Better than what you were when you came there. You're going to be firing pretty good groups. As time passes and you don't get out and train and practice like you did for those 2 days, if you go a month after that and you don't shoot at all, you will likely not be able to perform the same as you did at the end of that 2-day class. 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. Those skills diminish. At the end of that 2-day class, you were able to make a group, several shots, make a group into something like the size of a $50. As time progresses, that's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger unless you practice and train in that time frame. If you don't, your skills diminish. If you've ever learned how to tie complex knots, like something beyond just a basic square knot or whatever, like tying your shoes. If you ever learn how to tie figure eights, figure eight knot, a follow eight figure through, butterfly knot, etc. If you ever learn how to do those in a class and then you did not practice that, you probably found yourself pausing for a long period of time trying to remember how to tie that knot. When you first learned it, it didn't take you that long to figure out or remember how to do the knot. As time progresses and you do not practice this stuff, your skills diminish. This stuff is perishable. So with that being said, these officers can get training good at the beginning of their career, and then as time goes on, they're not getting the same firearms training they got when they went to the academy on a regular basis. If anything, it's broken down into small components that spread out over time, and they're only doing qualifications. And the qualification stuff is not training. It's just standing there on the flat range, shooting a couple rounds. I mean, not a couple rounds, but that's it. And so the skills start diminishing and you're not as good as you were. This is where elected officials need to give more money to their police. And this is where the police need to really think about how they spend their money within their department. Does the department need to pay for the chief to have a take-home car? Well, that depends on the size of the agency. Because there are some agencies the chief does work the road. They are an actual first responder. They go to domestic calls and stuff like that. There's some agencies where the chief actually gets out and works. In that case, yeah, sure. There's other agencies that are large enough the chief doesn't take calls. There are some agencies the chief don't even wear their police uniform. They just wear a suit and tie. Does that chief really need to have a take-home car? No. Why is this agency wasting money on this office person having a fucking take-home car? Oh, so the excuse so that they could respond to incidents in an emergency after hours? When's the last fucking time, if you've had a chief like this who don't have to work the street, when's the last fucking time you've ever had a chief respond to a call at 3 o'clock in the morning? Probably fucking never. Why do they get to take a car home? Why do they get to spend X amount of fuel a year going back and forth between the department and the home? That's an unnecessary expenditure. That shit could be cut out. Same with other admin within the department who don't respond to shit. Office jockeys who spend all their time in the office and never get out on the street, they don't need take-home cars. That's unnecessary expenditure. You can save money and put that towards the training budget. For these agencies where the people never leave the office and the police get hazardous duty pay, does the chief who never leaves his office really need to get hazardous duty pay? Hell no. What's his fucking hazard? Getting a paper cut? So in instances like that, local officials need to face reality and say, hey, this don't make sense. Why are we wasting money like this? We can save this X amount of money and put it towards training. Put it towards something else. So that's kind of an explanation on why misses occur in gunfights when it involves the police. To further expound upon that, when you think about firearms training, it typically always occurs on a shooting range and everyone's standing on the firing lane shooting at paper targets. The target's standing still and you are standing still. And there's no adrenaline dump. There's no running and gunning. It's just you standing there square to the target shooting. Yes, that's okay to do when you're learning some of the fundamentals of skills and tactics. But at some point, you need to interject some moving into there. And then once those basics and everything are learned, then comes on force. When it comes to the force on force training using marking cartridges, the submunition guns, that too varies from agency to agency. Some agencies got their own stuff and they can do it, or some agencies have to rely on other places to be able to go do that stuff at. When an officer has not got the experience a whole lot of shooting at a moving target while they're moving, and have not become stress inoculated enough to where it's not a herky-jerky movement, then this furthers the chances of misses occurring. So those are some explanations on why misses occur. Is it to say that, hey, this is okay? No, it's not, because every round that you send is accountable. Like, you have to be accountable for every round you send. Every round you send out has your name tied to it, and you need to be accountable for every round you fire.
Bound with it. Bound with it. Relaxation. Drop the knives.
So he drops something, and I think it's his radio, maybe. And then he ends up, for sure, dropping his radio, because you see it here. So he's done dropped his damn radio. Like, how shitty is that? Like, you lose your only means of communication to anyone. And although it's hard to tell, you can't see very well, obviously, because the camera's only pointed in the forward position. You don't get to see his side or anything. Was he running with the radio in his hand?
Relaxation. Drop the knives. Go wide.
You can't really see his left hand in it to see if it comes up in the view to see if the camera's in it. So he could be running with it in his hand, or he could have put it on his belt. If he put it on his belt, then I would imagine that the swivel mount should have worked correctly. The swivel mounts, and they work pretty good. You invert the radio to insert that swivel mount into its bracket, and then you rotate it, and it's pretty well locked in place. The only way to take it is to completely invert the damn whole radio holder and pull it out. So I think it's possible that he had it in his hand, and he was maybe trying to put it into the swivel mount and thought that he had it in, and then when he released, the radio fell to the ground. That's a possibility. Or it could just be that it just fell from his hand. I don't know. But this is another reason why I think that it's important to have lapel mics on the radio to alleviate issues like this. If you have a radio pouch on your belt and you secure your radio into that pouch and you pull the retention strap over it and you keep it in its place, then it shouldn't go anywhere. Shouldn't go anywhere at all, and unless you intentionally remove the retention strap and take the radio out yourself. So if you're doing it that and then having a lapel mic, you shouldn't ever lose your radio. At most, you could have your lapel mic fall off, but it's still going to be tethered to the radio and it's still going to be attached to you. There's a way to remedy that. There's a company called Mic Loop that makes a product that basically allows you to anchor that lapel mic to your body, and it's a pretty good solid foundation. It won't go anywhere. And it's basically just one big loop of paracord that you can use to twist up and put the mic through, and it locks in place. Or you can do a basically like a hitch and put the entire lapel mic speaker through it, and then it cinches around the cord itself, and it's not going anywhere. So you can either buy that, or you can get your own paracord and sort of make it yourself. But the best option, in my opinion, is to have your radio permanently affixed into a pouch on your belt, and you don't mess with taking the damn radio out. The only time you should ever be taking your radio out of its pouch is to change the batteries, or to go in there and change the zones and the channel. Like, you have to look at the display to figure out if you're on zone A, B, C, and then, you know, what channel you're going to that you don't frequently use. Like, you're wanting to switch over to some mutual aid channel or something like that, and like the last time you ever went to that damn channel was a year ago. Like, that would be the only appropriate time to take the radio out of its pouch, is change the battery or find that channel that you hardly ever use and you can't remember where it's at. Other than that, like, your damn radio should stay in its pouch, and you should be using a lapel mic to communicate through. So by him dropping his equipment and having to retrieve it, the suspect pretty much gets away from them.
Westbound on Spring, westbound on Spring. What do you got? What do you got? Yeah.
So this was the video that I was having in my head. This officer running with a radio in one hand and then the gun in the other. This don't work. Like, this is fucking stupid. So obviously his midbrain is taking over, and he's trying to get a good two-handed grip with his gun, but he's got a radio in one hand. So obviously their firearms training never starts with them holding a radio in their hand. Their firearms training probably starts with them standing on the line, both hands are empty, they go to gun, get two-handed grip, and put rounds on target. They don't realistically train. If they realistically trained, we would not be seeing this stupid shit. If he fires, he's having to fire from a one-handed grip. And when you fire from a one-handed grip, you decrease your chances of having accurate fire. If he tries to marry his hands together, kind of like he is right now, that's not a two-handed grip. That's a one-handed grip that looks fucking stupid. That's not going to increase his chances of having an accurate hit on target. He's obviously a pretty good runner, because he passes up all these other guys and gets up on them pretty good. Yeah, I like this. He just yanks his ass over. And there's probably some liberal out there. That's excessive. He didn't have to jerk on him like that. That's mean. Boo-hoo-hoo. Fuck him. So no idea who the hell this guy is and why he's even over here in this group. Um, I don't know. No idea. So he obviously fires a cartridge, has no effect. He has the older X26 Papa model, so he discards the first cartridge and he puts a second cartridge in. And he too has I guess he has a pretty decent strides. He closes that gap pretty well. He fires into this guy's back. This guy ends up falling down. Either he fell down because NMI was achieved, or it disrupted his whole thought process here. You know, he's running, he's dead set on running on this track. Boom, he gets popped with taser. It's pretty painful, and he's starting to jerk and turn. And he loses his footing and falls down. It's one of the two. I don't know which one, but he fires that cartridge into his back, and then as he falls down and goes onto his back, the second officer over here also deploys his taser as well. There was, of course, other officers chasing them who deployed their tasers, and they had no effect. It happens. Their tasers are not 100% effective. They can fail. And that's why you don't always go to a taser first, especially when a person has a deadly physical weapon. You always have, if you're by yourself, your first choice has to be to pull your deadly physical weapon, because it has a higher chance of working and getting the desired effect than a taser does. When there's multiple people there, one person can maintain lethal cover and the other person can utilize a less lethal option. The first taser was ineffective earlier. You even hear the guy saying he's out of taser cartridges or whatever, or his taser's out. So he fired his shot and it didn't work. And the probes didn't hit. I would suspect that it's one of two things were happening earlier at that point. One probe hit and the other missed, and one probe in is not going to achieve neuromuscular incapacitation, or both probes hit, but because he's got this jacket on, they didn't fully penetrate all the way through and into his skin. They just kind of lodged in the clothes and were sort of dangling on the clothes but weren't making contact. Or they could have gone in, but they were just too close together to be able to achieve NMI. This officer here fires into his back. The guy ends up falling down, but again, like I said, I'm not sure if NMI was achieved or if it just kind of caused him to trip up and fall down. This officer over here, when he deploys, I'm pretty confident that NMI is achieved, because you see a different body language out of this guy, and he appears to lock up.
That's the knife. Grab the knife.
So typically, when you watch videos of people being popped in the back with a taser, they can't really move their legs much anymore. They just kind of stiffen up like a board and fall forward on their face. So that's kind of what makes me think that this officer here didn't achieve NMI, but it caused enough pain for this guy to fully distract him, and he ended up stumbling and falling. The second officer, I believe he achieved NMI, because you see his arms lock up like that. That's a typical response when you get a good taser deployment on someone. They just sort of contract their arms like that, and they can't do anything.
That's the knife. Grab the knife.
Where's the other knife? There's two knives. There's two knives. Where's the knife?
I like how he just jerks his ass up.
In the coming week,
There's two knives. Where's the knife?
All right, that's about it for this video. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.